In general, a process has many causes, which are said to be causal factors for it, and all lie in its past. An effect can in turn be a cause of many other effects, which all lie in its future. Causality is an abstraction that indicates how the world progresses. So basic a concept that it is more apt as an explanation of other concepts of progression than as something to be explained by others more basic. The concept is like those of agency and efficacy. For this reason, a leap of intuition may be needed to grasp it. In Aristotelian philosophy, the word cause is also used to mean explanation, or answer to a why question, including Aristotle's material, formal, efficient, and final causes. Then the cause is the explanans for the explanandum. In this case, failure to recognize that different kinds of cause are being considered can lead to futile debate. Of Aristotle's four explanatory modes, the one nearest to the concerns of the present article is the efficient one. The topic remains a staple in contemporary philosophy. Concept. Metaphysics. The nature of cause and effect is a concern of the subject known as metaphysics. Ontology. A general metaphysical question about cause and effect is what kind of entity can be a cause, and what kind of entity can be an effect. One viewpoint on this question is that cause and effect are of one and the same kind of entity, with causality an asymmetric relation between them. That is to say, it would make good sense grammatically to say either A is the cause and B the effect, or B is the cause and A the effect, though only one of those two can be actually true. In this view, one opinion, proposed as a metaphysical principle in process philosophy, is that every cause and every effect is respectively some process, event, becoming, or happening. An example is, his tripping over the step was the cause, and his breaking his ankle the effect. Another view is that causes and effects are states of affairs, with the exact natures of those entities being less restrictively defined than in process philosophy. Another viewpoint on the question is the more classical one, that a cause and its effect can be of different kinds of entity. For example, in Aristotle's efficient causal explanation, an action can be a cause while an enduring object is its effect. For example, the generative actions of his parents can be regarded as the efficient cause, with Socrates being the effect. Socrates being regarded as an enduring object, in philosophical tradition called a substance, as distinct from an action. Epistemology. Since causality is a subtle metaphysical notion, considerable effort is needed to establish knowledge of it in particular empirical circumstances. Geometrical significance. Causality has the properties of antecedence and contiguity. These are topological, and are ingredients for space-time geometry. As developed by Alfred Robb, these properties allow the derivation of the notions of time and space. In this sense, the notion of causality is metaphysically prior to the notions of time and space. Necessary and sufficient causes. A similar concept occurs in logic. For this, see necessary and sufficient conditions. Causes are often distinguished into two types: necessary and sufficient. A third type of causation, which requires neither necessity nor sufficiency in and of itself, but which contributes to the effect, is called a contributory cause. Necessary causes. If X is a necessary cause of Y, then the presence of Y necessarily implies the presence of X. The presence of X, however, does not imply that Y will occur. Sufficient causes. If X is a sufficient cause of Y, then the presence of X necessarily implies the presence of Y. However, another cause Z may alternatively cause Y. Thus, the presence of Y does not imply the presence of X. Contributory causes. A cause may be classified as a contributory cause, if it precedes the effect, and altering it alters the effect, regardless of whether either the cause or the effect appears only in the presence of the other. J.L. Mackie argues that the usual talk of cause, in fact, refers to inus conditions. An example is a short circuit as a cause for a house burning down. Consider the collection of events: the short circuit, the proximity of flammable material, and the absence of firefighters. Together these are unnecessary but sufficient to the house is burning down. Within this collection, the short circuit is an insufficient but non-redundant part of a condition which is itself unnecessary but sufficient for the occurrence of the effect. So, the short circuit is an inus condition for the occurrence of the house burning down. Causality contrasted with conditionals. Conditional statements are not statements of causality. An important distinction is that statements of causality require the antecedent to precede or coincide with the consequent in time, whereas conditional statements do not require this temporal order. Confusion commonly arises since many different statements in English may be presented using if-then form. The two types of statements are distinct, however. For example, all of the following statements are true when interpreting if-then as the material conditional. If Barack Obama is President of the United States in 2011, then Germany is in Europe. If George Washington is President of the United States in 2011, then less than arbitrary statement greater than. The first is true since both the antecedent and the consequent are true. The second is true in sentential logic and indeterminate in natural language, regardless of the consequent statement that follows, because the antecedent is false. The ordinary indicative conditional has somewhat a more structure than the material conditional. For instance, although the first is the closest, neither of the preceding two statements seems true as an ordinary indicative reading. But the sentence "if Shakespeare of Stratford-on-Avon did not write Macbeth, then someone else did," intuitively seems to be true, even though there is no straightforward causal relation in this hypothetical situation between Shakespeare's not writing Macbeth and someone else's actually writing it. Another sort of conditional, the counterfactual conditional, has a stronger connection with causality. Yet even counterfactual statements are not all examples of causality. Consider the following two statements. If A were a triangle, then A would have three sides. If switch S were thrown, then bulb B would light. In the first case, it would not be correct to say that A's being a triangle caused it to have three sides, since the relationship between triangularity and three-sidedness is that of definition. The property of having three sides actually determines A's state as a triangle. Nonetheless, even when interpreted counterfactually, the first statement is true. An early version of Aristotle's four-cause theory is described as recognizing essential cause. In this version of the theory, that the closed polygon has three sides is said to be the essential cause of its being a triangle. This use of the word cause is of course now far obsolete. Nevertheless, it is within the scope of ordinary language to say that it is essential to a triangle that it has three sides. A full grasp of the concept of conditionals is important to understanding the literature on causality. In everyday language, loose conditional statements are often enough made, and need to be interpreted carefully. Questionable cause fallacies of questionable cause, also known as causal fallacies, non-causa pro causa, or false cause, are informal fallacies where a cause is incorrectly identified.